Hello, and welcome to Expat Aptitude, the podcast by La Relocation Group that explores global mobility through real stories, lived experience, and personal transformation. Today's episode is about reinvention because, being an expat often means becoming a work in progress again and again, rethinking who you are, what you do, and where you're going. Our guest today is Thomas Tsangaras. Thomas, welcome to Expat Aptitude. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Thomas, you are a recruiter and a career and relocation advisor based in Zurich, and also the founder of Follow Your Heart, which we will deep dive a little bit later. So through your work, you support professionals who are navigating career changes, international moves, and moments of real uncertainty, basically helping them turn these transition periods into opportunities for growth. So I invited you to the podcast because I'd really like to talk about reinvention, especially how international moves often push people to question their careers, their priorities, and sometimes even their sense of identity. And what makes your perspective particularly relevant is that relocation is not just something you work on professionally, right? It's something you've lived yourself repeatedly. So would you say that your life was deeply shaped by multiple relocations across different countries?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. It already goes back to my parents who both relocated at a very young age. My father was 17. My mother was 18 when they left their home. My mother relocated from Austria to the UK, and my father from Cyprus, from Nicosia to the UK. So I became a product of that. So, which is true. Without them, I wouldn't be here. So it goes a little bit deeper than that. And then the first time I relocated, I was 4.5 years old. So very, very young, from Manchester to Austria. So that was obviously not my decision. I wasn't participating in the decision process there. It was my mother's decision. So that was the first time. And then the second time at 17, and then 23, and then I was 34 when I moved to Switzerland.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really a life shaped by moving, by relocating. Looking back, how have these experiences influenced the way you see yourself nowadays? So, I mean, not as a fixed identity, but as someone constantly evolving.
Yeah, I guess we are all shaped to some extent by our environment. And when we change countries, move countries, we're changing our environment, and we adapt to that new environment, to that new culture, new language, etc. And as a result, we are also changing. So for sure, me relocating in the past, but maybe I will do so again in the future. It's also changing me. It also has an influence on my development. So yeah, I guess if I had stayed, if I go back to a specific time, let's say when I was 23 and I was living in Austria, if I had stayed instead of relocating to the UK at that time, then my life would have turned out very differently. I can say that almost with great conviction.
Who knows? Yeah, so it's like being an expat sometimes looks to me, when I hear stories from expats, it looks to me like a work in progress. So we often think about relocation as really a moment, like there's a before the relocation and after the relocation. But many expats describe it as an ongoing process. So from your perspective, what does it mean to see the expat journey as a work in progress rather than a single transition?
Yeah, true. It is. And when we move to a country, a new country, then it's not a final destination. Changes will occur once we move to that country. So, for example, when I moved here, I lived in Neuchâtel for 1 year, and then after that, I moved to Zurich. The journey continues. You might take on a role. You got a job, and that job allowed you to move to that country. But then after 2 years, you'll change jobs again, and maybe you'll change locations again. It is an ongoing process, and it's a journey. I don't think it's ever really final. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you have just said, most of the times it's linked with a career change. So career transitions and relocations are closely connected. And I find it very interesting in your role and in the, let's say, in the job that you have created for yourself, that you can advise people in the two of these sides. So both the career transition and the relocation, which is sometimes overlooked as if, okay, I have a job, I have to get a permit, I have to get a house, and I'm done. Okay, I have everything that I need to move. But I mean, working closely with professionals who are going through these transitions, I'm curious to hear what you see people struggling with most when their identity no longer fits with their new life and their new location, because maybe they have overlooked, the transition, the relocation, or romanticized the change.
I mean, you're right in a way that there is a before, during, and an after, like with any kind of change, and relocating to another country is a change. So I think the fear before is definitely, I think, one of the biggest ones, and that often influences the decision a lot. That's why you will hear many people say, "Oh, I'd love to move to that country one day," or "I want to leave my country one day," and years go by and they don't do it. Right. And that's usually because of the fear of change. But there are also others who are born in a country, born in a city, and they love it so much, they never even think of relocating to another place. And they live there their whole lives. And that's equal. I mean, that's fine as well. But I'm interested in working with people who want to make that change, who have a desire to get out, to move somewhere else, and to improve their life. And usually the reasons why we leave vary. Moving to another place, the desire or to improve our lives is usually the same. We move somewhere because we think we can better our lives. We're not changing to make things worse or with the belief that things are going to get worse. We're changing with the belief that things are going to get better. So I think the fear of change, the fear of how is it going to be, all that stuff that imagine is usually the next. What is it going to be like? Am I going to be alone? What if it doesn't work out? What if I go back home? What are people going to think if I go back home after 6, 12 months? Am I going to feel ashamed? All these kind of things go through somebody's mind. Usually there are emotions, not really practical issues. There are issues made up in our head. And that often prevents people from taking the leap, unfortunately, and then they don't do it. So I would say the fear before is the biggest fear. And once we start the process, once we get into the process, and once we land, of course, there are also stressful situations to deal with, but it's different because then we're in it, we've done it, with something behind, and it's almost like getting on a plane, right? You're on the plane, can't get off. So, and then you land, and then it's a different kind of fear. But I think the fear before the change is the biggest.
Yeah, and also as you spoke about fear, I was also thinking fear of change, fear of leaving the so-called, the famous comfort zone, and maybe this fear of uncertainty never leaves. I mean, even if you're very convinced and you're happy to move, but there's still some fear behind inside you because, I mean, fearing new situations and fearing the unknown is a natural thing. Maybe the key is transforming this fear into excitement, so into a positive thing. So what do you think? What practical or even mental shifts help people move from this fear, from hesitation, to really a sense of momentum, of excitement, when they face these big career changes or even big moves?
Connection.
Connection.
Connecting with others who have gone through the same process.
Mm.
I think that's the best thing to do in any situation. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if you think about it, you have, when you are suffering from addiction, you have, uh, you know, groups for coming off alcohol where you can join groups of people who deal with that issue. If you are pregnant, you can join other pregnant moms and learn about, for the first time. So it's the same principle. If you are uncertain, if you're scared, the best thing to do is connect with people who have gone through that process or who are just about to get on that same journey, because that's very, very comforting to know that you are not alone. And it's yeah, I mean, if you look around, it's usually advised in almost any kind of situation, whether we suffer from an illness, whether we coming off an addiction, whatever it is. Usually, it's very helpful to join a group of people who are going through the same thing, because that's the most reassuring thing. Because when we go through all these kind of things, usually we think it's just me,
But it's
I'm
never
having this.
just you.
It's never just you, and the chances are there are thousands of others, yeah, at least hundreds of others at the same time going through the same problem, having the same kind of fears, having the same kind of doubts, facing the same kind of challenges. How cool is it to find a way to connect with some of those people and share these things with others? And as you said earlier, try and create momentum and turning fear and doubts into excitement and conviction and certainty. And let's go for it. Let's do this together. Then discouragement turns into encouragement very quickly. So I think that connection is my number one. Yeah.
Well, it's something as simple as powerful, indeed. And maybe it's something that one doesn't think of as a first thing, because as you mentioned earlier, you think, oh, it's me, I don't know how to do, it's just me. I mean, it's not me being the first expat in the world, but it's me, the first one having this kind of fears, having this kind of hesitations or problems. So yeah, it can be quite comforting and engaging to connect with other people who already had this experience on their skin. But sometimes I think it's difficult to take the first step. So I think that that's where your project, it's a newborn, follow your heart. It's where it comes to the rescue, let's say. So I'd like to talk about your project, Follow Your Heart. We can see your big background. And so can you explain what is it in simple terms?
Yeah, it's a work in progress as well, and it's just something that I developed over the years. Maybe it was already always kind of inside of me, or I've kind of pursued it in a way, but I was never really putting it down on paper. I was never really writing it down. A couple of years ago or so, I found a way to express it, to put a name to it, and that's kind of what I'm trying to promote. And a lot of the decisions also that I made, sometimes when you make a decision, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense on paper. So if I look back, just one scenario, I go back to when I was 23 and I gave up my car and I moved. I was still living with my mom, and actually life was not bad. I had a lot of friends and all that kind of stuff, and I gave all of it up. I had 400 euros in my pocket, 2 suitcases, and I left to go to the UK. And my godfather was kind enough to give me his couch where I could sleep on for the first couple of months. But on paper, didn't really make much sense. Why would you give all this up? Why would you leave your family, give up your car? You have everything, your friends, all this stuff. So I think this is what it often is. Sometimes, you gotta follow your heart, and you gotta listen to your gut, your instincts, and follow that. And it's not about, yeah, I follow my heart and life is gonna be easy and this and that. No, It's more about alignment with where you want to be, where you see your future. And it also comes with sacrifices. But I think mostly what we feel in our gut or what we feel in our hearts is very difficult at times, especially early on when you make that decision. It's very difficult to put it on paper and to make sense of it sometimes. You got to trust yourself and where you're going. Only then in hindsight, when you look back and you say, oh, I'm so proud I made that decision. In fact, some of them you might look back and think, well, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. But only when you look back, you can say that. When you're at the beginning, when everything is ahead, it might not make sense. So I think a lot of it is about that. But it's not some formula, something that I coded here. Where, oh, this is the way. So it's an ongoing process. Everybody is a little different. Everybody has other things that they would like to pursue. It's more about that. I think it comes down to really trying to understand what's burning inside of you, whether that is leaving your job, pursuing a specific career, getting out of a relationship, moving to another country. I mean, we only live once, so I think that's where you want to kind of pursue what's really burning inside of you. So that's kind of what it is about. The bigger picture of it is to really try and create a platform where people can really express themselves and share their stories of what it was like during and after their relocation. So really the emotional journey. Because what you were saying earlier, we have to find a flat and we have to move our stuff. We need to register at the immigration office. We need to get our papers. We need to be insured. All these things are important. And when we know step by step what we need to do, it makes the process much less stressful. But the Follow Your Heart and this kind of project is more about the emotional journey that we go through. What did it feel like to say goodbye to our parents, to our friends, to the job that we've had for 10 years, for example. And now we've landed in this new place, in this new environment. How does it all feel? How are we connecting? So it's really more, Follow Your Heart is about it's an emotional thing rather than a practical one. Because one could think, I'm moving to this country, I'm accepting that job because it pays me 30% more than what I'm earning right now where I live in my country, for example. Many people do that. And that's all fear, right? Like we said earlier, we're changing to improve our lives. Could be financial, it could be all sorts of things. But again, still underneath all of this lies an emotional journey.
Yeah, so it goes back to connecting people, telling these stories and making these stories available to people that want to know how it is, how it could be, and also how it could be difficult to do the transition, but really to hear that from people that already have experienced that. And I find it very, very beautiful, the thing that you do and that you concentrate on the emotional part of the journey, because it's something that usually is really overlooked. And we tend to focus only on the organizational steps, on the logistics, on what you need. But I think that expats who wants to be an expat really needs a platform like this, and also maybe to take the decision to go into a more emotional journey, to share it with peers. I think that nevertheless, this philosophy, you have somehow to adapt it, to use it in the daily life when you have to take concrete decisions. So I was wondering if you can and how you manage to take this follow your heart philosophy into your job as a consultant, a career consultant and advisor. So to help people take the concrete steps.
Yeah, I think each situation is always a little bit different. And some people have more doubts, more fears, more questions. And then with those, you try and, because you don't want to sell something or promote something or convince people of doing something that they may not want to do or they're not ready for it yet. So it's all about assessing somebody's situation, where they're at. And sometimes right away this person would be better off, or you never know 100%, of course, but you're almost certain that this person will be better off if he or she would take this step. And then it's kind of disappointing when they don't do it for whatever reason, and the fear creeps in again, and they stay put. So because I deal with a lot of people who approach me, they're all enthusiastic about it, and then they disappear. But that's just part of what almost all recruiters experience. They deal with this every day. So I think it helps to tell people that you're going a little deeper with everything, and that there is a philosophy behind it. And then you explain to people that with the qualifications, the work experience, and everything they have accumulated up to this point, let's see how we can package this and take you from where you are now to there. Yeah. And let's make this an exciting journey, and for you to grow and to really look at all the different elements. And sometimes you have to open it up because we can't see these elements. And that's why it's helpful to work with someone, an advisor or recruiter, coach, whoever. There's many out there. Find one that you can connect with and that can help you see these things and elevate it, because that's what it's about. Everybody can take their bags, get on a train or a plane, and move from one place to another. It's not that difficult to do. But the question is, what are you going to get out of it? How can you elevate it and make it a really rich experience with all the things involved? The challenges, fears, or the sweat, the tears, blood, whatever.
Whatever.
But to look back on it and say it was worth it, even though it was hard. That is something I think everybody wants to be able to say that, and you feel more confident. You have widened your horizon. You've grown in confidence. You have more awareness. You're more risk tolerant as well when you go through a process like that. So I think there are so many wins that one can have, but when you're just scared always about what could go wrong, what am I going to lose, how is it going to be, because most people have to give up quite a bit when they go through a process like that. And this is also when it comes to the actual crunch, when a lot of people pull out because they realize, okay, now I've got to resign from my job, give up my flat, have kids, take the kids out from kindergarten, school. So it's a huge change. So you gotta really want it. I think something has to be on fire, to say, let's do it. And when you're working with someone who can guide you, help you, support you, encourage you, especially with the low moments, that's very helpful. It's the same. If you want to lose 20 kilos, you want to give up smoking, or drinking or whatever it is, you have somebody who can guide you and support you. It's worth the investment, isn't it?
And for those people who are looking for such a guide, where can they reach you? How can they reach you?
On LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, yeah.
That's right.
That's the place to be.
That is the place to be. Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm.
Okay. So, Thomas, I think we have made it to the end of the episode, and we close every episode with the same question to each guest. What does Expat Aptitude means to you?
Expat Aptitude. I think it means to me that I'm making the move, I'm doing it, and as a result, I can elevate myself. That's what I look to achieve. If I hear it and I think about it, kind of the aptitude, and you get on this journey. It's all about elevating yourself and taking things to the next level.
I like it. It's really a powerful description. So making steps to the next level and elevating yourself. Thomas, thank you so much for this conversation. It was truly inspiring. And I think what really comes through this episode is the idea that career transitions, relocating, they aren't about really arriving at a final destination, but about evolving, elevating yourself, as you were saying, reinventing yourself, and most of all, overcoming fears. So I really find it beautiful the way that you are trying to connect people through your project, follow your heart. And I would like once more to remember people that they can find you on LinkedIn and they can connect with you to tell their story or to help, to ask you for help. So thank you again for sharing your experience and your perspective.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
And thank you also to everyone listening to Expat Aptitude. You can find this episode on YouTube and Spotify. And if you want to join the conversation, use the hashtag Expat Aptitude on social media and share your story. Until next time, and keep embracing change. Bye.